good evening to Europe, good morning to Asia, and good afternoon to those all across the fruited plains. You're now locked into the worldwide 20 megabit beacon of truth, hope, and justice, otherwise known as your weekly dose of the Crimson Pill. I, your host, the great and all-powerful Antonin Fiore. Just make sure you don't peek behind the curtain, folks. Encourage you to unfasten your seatbelts and turn on all portable electronic devices as we embark on the next voyage of the USS Crimson Pill. Our course has been charted for the Isle of Light by way of the Straits of Knowledge and the Sea of Tranquility. In the event of turbulence, the captain reminds you that your seat cushion is no substitute for an open mind. If you're seated in an exit row, you are now invited to move forward to our first-class cabin of truth at any time. Ladies and gentlemen of the listening audience, welcome to the Crimson Pill.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Crimson Pill, ladies and gentlemen, an unexpectedly early edition of the Crimson Pill. We've moved to a 3-hour format today, and so we've begun the program an hour early. For anyone who's not listening at the moment, and of course you wouldn't be able to hear me even if you tried, don't worry, we're going to be uploading to YouTube. This segment of the program, it'll be available to you just as soon as we have our MP3 completed from the show's program, so probably sometime tomorrow or Tuesday. Those of you who are listening, of course, the reason I make mention of that is so that you can help spread the word via email, Skype, Facebook, etc., etc. Ladies and gentlemen, today, the 26th of June, Sunday, 2011, what an interesting time. There's the old Chinese proverb, may you live in interesting times, which is not intended really so much as a courtesy as it is a curse. And unfortunately, we find ourselves in the midst of the most interesting of times. And as a result, there are so very many topics for us to address, these things that are happening in the news, these things that our so-called leaders are doing to us and at us and toward us with every passing day, things that we need to be very, very carefully aware of, and we need to build our awareness of these things quite rapidly. Today we're going to be picking up some loose threads. If you were with our program last week, you heard our interview with Dr. Joseph Farrell. The main course of our discussion was built around his body of work covering roughly 1900, 1910 until after the conclusion of World War II and beyond, until the present day, in fact, but focused on the events happening in Europe, centered around the events of what we think of as Nazi-era Germany, the rise of fascism itself. Complicated subjects. If you were not able to join us live for last week's program and for that interview with Dr. Farrell, that also is available on YouTube. The channel is Crimson Pill TV, Crimson Pill TV channel on YouTube, to sort of pick up and recover the homework from the weeks past. The week before that, we were joined by Dr. Brooks Agnew, and we had a discussion of several disclosures that are being made by NASA, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, who through most of their course of existence have wanted us to believe that they are a civilian space agency, when in fact they were chartered as a Department of Defense extension. All of the most interesting findings that they have made then, and in fact still until today, are considered classified at the moment of their discovery. We don't get to hear the very most important and interesting things, to say the least interesting, that NASA has discovered throughout their entire existence. What we receive are scraps from the table. What we receive are bits and pieces of disclosure that they make, veiled, hidden between the lines. And it is to that subject that I want to turn our discussion today in opening, before we're joined by our first guest, who has done some fascinating work himself, in fact, in the sense of reading between the lines, investigative research, cryptography, for those of you who are familiar with the subject. But we'll turn to our first guest here after some introductory remarks about our friends at NASA, who have been busy again in the course of disclosures, meta-disclosures, little bits and pieces that we are allowed to know. And in this case, I'm turning my attention to a recent article in space.com. The author is Joe. Joe, I'm sorry I don't pronounce your last name correctly. Rao? It's spelled R-A-O. Space.com, Friday, June 14th. Some of you, in fact, in the listening audience may have heard that we are about to be visited in a very close pass by an asteroid on Monday, tomorrow morning. You might be on your way to work. You might still be in bed, depending upon where it is that you live around the world. What you should know is that we will have an asteroid passing just 7,500 miles above Earth's surface, NASA officials say. At that particular moment, which is 9:26 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, at that particular moment, we're going to be visited by this asteroid, which will be passing off the coast of Antarctica, almost 2,000 miles southwest of South Africa. The scientists, NASA officials, have named this object 2011 MD. Now, what's so interesting about 2011 MD? Well, it was discovered Wednesday, June 22nd. That's correct. Discovered less than 5 days before it makes its pass over Earth. I use the term discovered loosely because NASA is well armed with a range of instruments